We simply cannot imagine the amount of energy that was and still is created. This is spectacular. It doesn't make any sense. Something strange is happening here. So what are the stone circles in southern Africa all about? We've explored cymatics and the manifestation of sand on a metal plate, or sound that creates physical form when you put sand on a metal plate. And I think by now, if you've looked at the stone circles from the aerial photographs, you realize that that's exactly what we're dealing with. Every stone circle is just a physical manifestation of the sound frequencies that emanate out of Mother Earth at that particular point. So this is why every stone circle is completely unique, because the sound frequencies are changed and morphed as they move through the earth, and as they surface on that particular place of the earth, they create a very specific frequency and a very specific cymatic pattern based on that frequency. And this is what the ancients captured, what the Anunnaki captured. They identified the cymatic pattern of the sound, and they stacked the stones according to the cymatic pattern, amplifying the sound coming out of the earth and turning them into electromagnetic fields and a form of energy that they then used for everything they did in this part of the world, and possibly right around the world. And this gives us a giant energy grid that is still active today. Because remember, all these stone circles in southern Africa are all connected by those channels or wires that all connect them together. So we're looking at a giant energy grid that creates an unimaginable amount of energy. We simply cannot imagine the amount of energy that was and still is created by these stone circles of southern Africa. And some of these stone circles are built in the shape of magnetrons. And we've already spoken about magnetrons and the fact that magnetrons are also driven by sound and resonance that create this very high energy output. Now, if a small magnetron can create a laser beam that can cut metal in a split second, you can just imagine how much energy is created or would be created by a giant magnetron about 20 meters or 60 feet in diameter, made out of quartz and silica and crystalline substance, stone. This is why the ancients used stone. They didn't have to use advanced technology, or what we perceive as advanced technology, because they didn't have to sell it to anybody. They didn't have money. They didn't use money. They did things for whatever they needed to do to achieve their goals. And this is what we're going to talk about in much more detail in future episodes. So, if one small magnetron can create a laser beam that can cut metal in a split second, how much energy would a giant magnetron create? Well, I had two answers from two magnetron scientists, and they both gave me the same answer. One of these would create more energy than all the power plants on Earth today. This is staggering. Why is it staggering? Because we don't just have one of these ancient magnetron sites. We have thousands of them. And then we have 10 million of these stone structures that support these magnetron sites. This is truly something that we need to take some time to digest. But the most exciting thing about this is that these stone circles are still alive, and we know this because we measured them. We measured the sound frequencies, the electromagnetic fields that are created by these sound frequencies coming out the stone walls. We measured the heat signatures that are created that come out of the ground, which is the average temperature about 300 meters below the ground. Now, the heat signatures is a very interesting and peculiar thing here. It's not the surface temperature on the surface of the ground. It's the average temperature about 300 meters below the surface of the ground. And the scale works on the basis that at 80 degrees Celsius, I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit, but remember that in Celsius, water boils at 100 degrees. So at 80 degrees Celsius, it tells you that you are standing on top of a volcano. That's what this heat signature scale measures, right? That's how it's calibrated. 80 degrees, you're standing on top of a volcano. And you'll start seeing how important this calculation or this measurement is when we start measuring these sites. At this particular stone circle, we measured 33.5 gigahertz of sound frequency coming out of the walls. I can tell you that the lowest frequency we measured coming out of the walls is about 14.5 gigahertz, which is insane. You shouldn't be measuring sound in the gigahertz coming out of, nature or stones in nature. So clearly, whatever these ancients did, what the Anunnaki did in constructing these stone circles, they knew exactly what they were doing to harness and amplify this energy. 33.5 gigahertz sound frequencies coming out of these walls. And it seems to me that it is the quartz. It's the vibration of the quartz in the crystalline structure of the rocks that make up the walls that actually emits the sound frequency that is picked up by the instruments that we use to detect this. The other thing we measured is the heat signature coming out of the stone circle. Outside of the stone circle, the heat signature, the average temperature, 300 meters deep, is about 5.5 degrees Celsius. The moment we swing the measuring device into the stone circle, it shoots up to 58 degrees Celsius. This is spectacular. It doesn't make any sense. We measured electromagnetic fields that are being created as a result of the sound and this seemingly swirling sound, this movement of sound through the stone walls that creates an electromagnetic field. And it is this electromagnetic field that seems to run horizontally in most of the stone circles, and this is what prevents you from getting satellite reception, and you lose GPS reception, and your GPS stops to work. Now we can explain why we pick up these weird GPS anomalies when you walk into the stone circles, and specifically into Adam's calendar, where it's even more pronounced. When we get to Adam's calendar, or as we now know, Enki's calendar, everything we think we know about science and measuring of sound and frequencies flies out the window. Because as you approach it and you measure the sound frequencies, there's nothing there, just ambient noise. And the moment you step through that imaginary circle, because there's not even a wall at Adam's calendar. At the stone circles, you can still understand where the sound is coming from. It's coming from out of the walls. Yet at Adam's calendar, there are no walls, but the same thing happens. As we approach, nothing, and the moment you step into the imaginary circle, the sound frequencies go beyond 375 gigahertz. This is insane. I don't think anything in the history of this planet has ever been measured at 375 gigahertz that I know of. Unless you're working in the secret military on the secret space program, you're probably working at those kind of frequencies, but certainly not in nature and certainly not in man-made structures. The heat signatures are spectacular. Again, outside the Adam's calendar, the heat signature is about 9 degrees approaching it. The moment you step right into the imaginary circle, it shoots up to 77 degrees. That means you're 3 degrees short of being on top of a volcano. The moment you step between the two central calendar stones, it shoots up beyond 80 degrees. Now the reading is telling you you're standing on top of an active volcano. But we know we're not on top of a volcano. So clearly the site is doing something that's generating this incredible heat signature, suggesting something that we don't quite yet understand. Something strange is happening here. And this all gets exposed when we start measuring the electromagnetic fields. Because when you enter Adam's calendar, the electromagnetic field created by the swirling sound in the very high gigahertz creates an very powerful electromagnetic field running horizontally, again, blocking satellite and making you lose your GPS signal until you go between the two calendar stones in the middle. And there the electromagnetic field runs vertically out of the ground into the sky. This doesn't make any sense. This is just a complete confusion. We have crossing electromagnetic fields that shouldn't happen in nature. So what have we got here? We have clear evidence of an intelligently constructed site, and I believe we have something like this, an active vortex, an active portal constructed by those who understand the laws of nature, understand how to use sound and frequencies to create this kind of energetic site. Now, what was this site used for? We were already told that this is where humanity was created by the gods. And in future episodes, I can share much more about that from channeled information and shamanic revelations and many other areas of research that has come to me over the years. But what was this possibly used for? We learned from Zecharia Sitchin and from the translations that the Anunnaki were taking the gold off the planet. And it seems to be consistent with the fact that there's not much gold on this planet today. And is it possible that they were using this site to beam up the gold? It certainly is quite possible. And once we realize that teleportation is something we can do today already, I believe that the Anunnaki were possibly doing that, and they were not blasting the gold into space with skyships or rocket ships, as Zecharia Sitchin suggests, that they were actually beaming it up with ancient sites like Adam's Calendar and possibly other sites. One other great possible site that they were doing this was at Abu Ghurab, just close to the Giza pyramids. If you look at Abu Ghurab, it so closely resembles the Star Trek Beam Me Up Scotty platform. It's actually ridiculous. You got this huge alabaster crystalline platform right in front of the broken down pyramid that would have been the source of energy that energized the platform, the crystal platform in front of it, that would have been the teleportation device, all on a beautiful large rectangular circuit board, if you want to call it that, or an energetic platform that would have been used as a teleportation device or a transmutation device or something like that, through the understanding of the use of sound and resonance from Mother Earth. And that brings us to the end of this episode, and how this information connects to many other ancient sites, and how these sites were used in ways that we could not even begin to imagine on such a large and massive scale that truly boggles the mind. I'm Michael Tellinger, and thanks for watching.
If you liked this video and you want to see more amazing content, go ahead and check out the next video on our channel.